I'd like to start by asking how many of you all are students here? Students. Wow, that's quite a lot. I usually like to divide people I meet into students and non-students. A teacher of mine once joked that young students like y'all were broad-minded and narrower at the waist. And as you grow up in life, quite the opposite happens. You start getting narrower here and then, So when I was asked to head an architecture school, I was overwhelmed. I also wondered whether it was because of my broad mind or was something else also getting broad. And schools, colleges and universities, places where you take a lesson and then you're given a test, right? Well, in life, most of the time you take, life teaches you, gives you test that teaches you a lesson. And my life has been full of surprise tests. The biggest surprise test that I got was the opportunity to become a teacher. And it was also one of the biggest milestones in my life. I was directly involved in education. Education, it's a big word. All of you know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, right? Right? Well, wrong. Actually, the sun neither rises nor sets. It's the earth that rotates around its own axis. And this is what education does to you. Sometimes it kills your logic. And I did not want to deliver an education of this sort. Most of the time, our education, conventional education systems, fall short miserably. And most of our academic systems are highly overrated. And as we even speak here, conventional education systems are actually spoiling the life of so many students around. Hear me out. I am not saying that theory is not important, or I'm not saying that doing mathematics is bad, or we don't need to learn other valuable skills in life. But too often, the lectures that our students listen to is, they don't get the point. Sometimes they think it's irrelevant to their life, or they're even confused, how is this even applicable to my life? And most of this content that they are exposed to is they memorize it and they spew it out in an exam, and then it's quickly forgotten. And I would like to share a story with you. I was thrown out of school as a child, literally thrown out for not being up to the mark. And obviously I was most of the time found drawing caricatures of my teachers, even on toilet walls, and mathematical formulae kind of looked like calligraphic patterns to me. I was found to be an extremely restless child. I couldn't concentrate and sit for hours in a lecture. And my parents were told by my teachers, who had literally given up on me, that he wouldn't make it. And as I grew up, I started questioning, was something wrong with me? Or was something wrong with the education system that threw me out? And then something happened. Like we all know that we are born curious. But by the time you get to college, the sense of curiosity kind of slowly dies down. And you find many students amongst us who painfully endure through the entire process of college rather than enjoying it. And they usually wait for the weekends, or they usually wait for the holidays. And what I thought was that many of us actually realize very late in life, why did I pursue what I pursued? I have got so many of my friends who actually dropped out of college. And when I grew up and I became a teacher, I kind of followed convention. I started telling my students, yes, good grades mattered, and I tried to ask questions to my students only of answers that I knew. And I tried to follow convention. But then something spectacular happened. As I grew up, I traveled around the world. I met so many other teachers around the world. I met so many interesting people, and I just realized that there's so much that I don't know. Suddenly this crown of a teacher that I was wearing melted off. I realized that the more you know, the more you don't know. And I decided that I wanted to deliver and be part of an education of relevance. What happened next was a series of experiments that I carried out in a school, an architecture school, because I believed that there was a shift in conventional approach that was required. There was a sort of urgency that we had to answer. The school is supposed to be a platform where students learn to do what they love to do, where they dig deep into their own resources and actually find out what they're actually passionate about. I introduced movies, I introduced outdoor sketching, discussions, debates, free thinking, traveling, all as part of the curriculum. And I suddenly found out that students were actually trying to discover their own potential. And they got to know in college itself what they truly loved. An era of global education, an era of global schools. But quite often, we should ask, do we actually impart education that is also rooted locally to a context? Can education, just like our food, our clothing, and our language, also start belonging to a place? And that's the idea that I gave my students, that education can also be truly local. You can think global, but act local. And what happened next was truly astonishing. The group of students, teachers, local practitioners, local community, we all got together in this process of collaborative learning. Before becoming architects in the society, I told them that it is very important to become architects of your own identity, and that our collective potential and our collective imagination has dire effects on society. And this is where art in its various forms, both applied arts and performing arts, was introduced as part of the curriculum. Students found all the freedom to go around and build sculptures in college. They held fashion shows made out of waste in college. They actually had drama as a part of the curriculum. We also held a series of workshops, hands-on workshops, that taught the students that what you learn theoretically can also be applied practically. What's the point of knowing what a brick does theoretically if you don't know how to use it to build a structure? So this is the kind of knowledge that I wanted to give the students. And architectural education, of that matter, any education, shouldn't just be imparted within the four walls of a classroom. They realized that an idea on paper can actually see the true light of day. And guess what? The students ended up making an amphitheater for themselves in the campus, just using the earth below and recycled steel. Now, we did not do this in isolation. We invited students, teachers, and school students and local community to be a part of this process. We try to develop a sensitivity towards nature where every student adopted a tree, a plant, a shrub, and planted it across various parts of the campus in a carefully curated series of landscape workshops. Around 80 different species of trees, herbs, and shrubs made the campus breathe to life, which was otherwise dry and drab. And suddenly, out of nowhere, we saw birds coming in. We saw rabbits and snakes being part of the campus, beautiful insects and beetles. And guess what? Our students just developed an ecosystem. And They understood that the importance of being part of the environment rather than being isolated from it. And they surely wouldn't vouch, I vouch here saying that they surely wouldn't stand anyone plucking a flower in their garden. And in the future, when they go around becoming architects and building buildings, they would surely not cut down a tree on their site. And the bamboo saplings that they had grown years ago actually became the raw materials to many other structures that they built in campus. They built a juice shop for themselves and a canteen. And obviously, under the guidance of experts and teachers like us. Now, we also traveled extensively with the students to give them a sense of place, to give them a sense of culture, geography, and climate. And suddenly, they realized that, and a building in Rajasthan, a building in Ladakh, or Kerala, or for that matter, Sri Lanka or France, cannot be the same. A building needs to be rooted to where it belongs to. And at an age where air-conditioned glass boxes are mushrooming throughout our cities and built environment, my students realized the importance of local materials, local construction techniques, local resources, both human and natural. These enriching experiences slowly led to the participatory process of the school being envisioned by all the stakeholders in the campus. The teachers, the students, all came together to build their own campus. And suddenly, our belief system started becoming a built environment. We made sure that we did not build gray, but rather we built green using the sun above and the earth below. In the context of 21st century architecture, we learned from the past and the present to develop a new vocabulary of architecture using the earth and bamboo, using local construction techniques and local materials. Suddenly, outdoor classrooms open to sky spaces and a completely non-air conditioned campus and energy efficient campus became the norm. We turned this campus then became a lifelong partner to the students who truly enjoyed running various activities within the campus. The world is changing so fast that by the time a student graduates from college, sometimes what they've learned for years on a stretch might start becoming obsolete or might start becoming useless. The main thing that students need to know is not what to think, but how to think, so that they could actually face challenges and problems they're going to face in life. Our education system need not create kids who are good at school or who are good at education. Instead, we need to create an environment that engages and fosters inspiration and creativity. We need to build environments that allow our students to get their hands dirty and build things. It is essential to instill inspiration and passion and confidence in students because that's what they lack the most and that's what they need the most. The biggest milestone in my journey was when my students actually started moving out of the campus, many to become entrepreneurs, many to start up their own companies, and building ecologically sensitive buildings around the country and outside. And not just that, they started adopting various parts of the city that they lived in to actually use the skills that they learned during campus to transform that part of the city. And I'd like to show you a small video where the students have adopted a part of the city that they live in and try and transform it. years of this journey has sometimes been a lot of hard work. It's been painful, it's been messy. But I think it was worth the work that we did. And my students are out there trying to make a change, just like we teachers are trying to make a change in education. And I'd like to quote Christopher Benninger, who said that the greatest gift that a teacher can give a student is the knowledge that they'll always be a student for life. So I'd like to ask you the question once again, how many of you all are students? Thank you.